I want to talk about the problems that arise due to secularism, the rise of atheism, the rise of, well, the increase of non-religious people in general in the business world. But before I do that, let me just say that I might offend some of you people's religious beliefs. So I'm not gonna ask who of you believes what or why, but yeah, I don't think that religion should be exempt from criticism. I reject the idea of blasphemy, so I think it should well be possible to criticize someone's religion just as it is possible to criticize someone's opinion about football or something. If you feel offended, it is definitely not my intentions. I've divided my presentation into 3 parts. First, I'm going to go into the definitions that are important in this context. Secondly, I want to talk about the problems or the consequences in the US. And thirdly, I want to talk about the problems in Germany. I have completely left out Islamic countries because the problems are probably worse there, but it's due to time issues, and I think these are the 2 countries that are most important, since we all live in Germany and we're English students, so yeah, or students of English. So let's begin. First off, atheism. Atheism is simply the lack of a belief in God or gods, or the proposition, I do not believe that God or gods exist, or rather, I am unconvinced of the claim that God or gods exist. So atheism is not the positive claim that I believe that no gods exist. It's the negative claim, I do not believe that gods exist. You get where I'm hinting at? So the positive claim is God exists, and the burden of proof is always on the positive claim, on those religious folks that make such claims. So atheism is simply, I'm not convinced of that claim. That's all it is. It is not my job to convince you that God doesn't exist. And also, okay, sorry, that's too early. So, atheism is not a worldview. It is simply a position on the existence or non-existence of God or gods. Atheist, not a theist, not a God believer. That's all that is. In fact, everyone on this planet is an atheist in regards to all other gods that have ever been posited. So, for instance, a Christian is an atheist in regards to Allah, and the other way around, etc., etc. Another term that is often confused with atheism is agnosticism, which is the lack of having knowledge about a specific claim. A Gnostic, not a Gnostic, not a knowing person. The difference to atheism is that atheism is a statement of belief, whereas agnosticism is a statement of knowledge. So atheism and agnosticism are not mutually exclusive. It is entirely possible to be an agnostic atheist, which means that you're just not convinced that the claim God exists has met its burden of proof, but you do not know for 100%, or you do not claim that you can prove it, that there is no God. And then, last definition, secularism. It simply means the separation of church and state, as we probably all know, or the notion that church and state should be separated, and that religion is held privately and kept out of public. So it's basically what we have in the Western world due to the process of secularization that started in the 18th century, around the age of the Enlightenment. So, what problems do we have in the US? Although the US is officially a secular nation, it is the most religious nation in the Western world. And there's several explanations or hypotheses to why that is. For instance, some people say that for the people, secularism has become boring because it's, so to speak, it's officially are prescribed by the government, and therefore religiousness flourishes among, so in privacy. And for instance, in the UK, it's the other way around. There, we do not have a separation of church and state, but there's a considerable amount of atheists and non-religious people in the private sector of the public. So there, so to speak, religiousness has become boring. Also, another explanation is that the US is an extremely young country. I mean, they have achieved in 200 years what the rest of the Western world, Europe, etc., has achieved in 1,000 years. So, and they attribute this success to the Christian God. But this is only a hypothesis and, not the main topic of my presentation, of my talk. So, 40% of the public in the US believe in a literal interpretation of the Bible. They believe that God created the earth in 6 days, and that the earth, in fact, that the whole universe is less than 6,000 years old. Incredible. Outspoken atheists are often discriminated in the job world. They are fired, or despite their professional qualities, don't even get the job if the boss knows about their atheism. The same often goes for people of other religions that disagree with the religion of the boss, because, because Christianity is so dominant there. According to an article by journalist Nick Wing on the website of the Huffington Post, a survey found that respondents significantly preferred religious candidates for jobs that were considered high trust, while they marginally preferred non-believers for low trust jobs like servers or waiters. Admittedly, Nick Wing doesn't say which survey that is, so you shouldn't completely trust me on that and go research it yourself, but it sounds pretty realistic to me. Funnily enough, if you look at the world's most successful people, like Steve Jobs, the late Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, scientists like Stephen Hawking, almost all scientists are atheists, so to speak. And also this guy over there, the creator of Star Trek, Gene Roddenberry, they're all atheists. So the most successful people are actually atheists. And if you look at the media in general, just as with the realm of science, where almost all people are atheists, in the media in general, in Hollywood, most people are atheists, or at least they're more progressive in terms of religiousness. For instance, Seth MacFarlane, the creator of Family Guy, he's also an atheist. And also, it is often claimed that atheists own the internet, because sites like Facebook and Reddit.com are owned, and many others are owned by atheists. So it is pretty much clear that atheists are underestimated in the job world. The perception in public does not at all map the reality. Atheists have also faced discrimination after being hired. In 2010, a math teacher was fired from her position at a Catholic school after someone noticed she joined an atheist website from a home computer and made comments on Facebook about not believing in God. Now, admittedly, it was a Catholic school, but still she was a math teacher, so that should have nothing at all to do with her beliefs. A few years prior, a government and history teacher in Texas was allegedly fired simply over the suspicion that he was an atheist. Other people have reported similar mistreatment, though the nature of their terminations wasn't confirmed. A 2006 study by the University of Minnesota found atheists to be the least trusted minority group in the country. However, in the last years that has luckily changed a little bit. for the first time in 2012, it has been stated that more than 50%, 54% to be exact, would vote for an atheist as president. So atheists are the fastest growing minority. About 5% of the population are self-declared atheists, and about 20% are non-religious, generally. And additionally, there are of course also those people who do not believe in God but don't identify as atheists. But we shouldn't say that they're not atheists then, because, as I said, by definition, an atheist is someone who does not believe in God. So even if he doesn't self-declare or he doesn't identify as an atheist, he still is. So it's hard to estimate those numbers. However, there is currently not a single non-religious person in Congress, although there has been one once. And there's only one in all the state legislatures across the US, Ernie Chambers, who we can see right there, who is a representative of Nebraska, who even, although it may sound strange, filed a lawsuit against God in 2007 because, according to him, God is responsible for death, threats, fear, and terror, etc. So anyway, I think that it's obvious that atheists are pretty much underrepresented. In fact, despite the supposed separation of church and state, you can't possibly become president of the United States if you do not put your hand onto the Bible and then say, I swear to God. Unless, of course, as some suggest Obama did, you fake it. But, you know, I don't know if he faked it or not. He claims he's a Christian, so may well be that he's a moderate Christian, but, you know, some say that he faked it. Yeah, and all this seems to be sort of an extension of the job discrimination issue that I mentioned. Some right-wing conservatives argue that the USA was founded as a Christian nation, although the Constitution and the Founding Fathers clearly say otherwise. For instance, I have this quote by Thomas Jefferson, where he says, "The Christian God can easily be pictured as virtually the same God as the many ancient gods of past civilizations. The Christian God is a three-headed monster, cruel, vengeful, and capricious. If one wishes to know more of this raging, three-headed beast-like God, one needs only to look at the caliber of people who say they serve him. They are always of two classes, fools and hypocrites." So it doesn't look at too, you know, Christian and religion in general supporting as right-wing conservatives say that the Founding Fathers were. It's actually pretty radical. Or another quote here by John Adams, where he says, "The government of the United States is not in any sense founded on the Christian religion." So it's basically the exact refutation of that what those right-wing conservatives often claim. And also, because some people will use this as another argument for the Christian God, "In God We Trust" wasn't added to the money until 1956. So that was when threat of communism was relevant, and they equated it with sort of godlessness, etc. So, you know. So that's it for the US. Now I want to talk about Germany. Germany is, as some argue, luckily the most secular nation in the world, basically. And it seems that religion has become more of a cultural thing here. You'll often hear exchanges like, "Well, I'm Catholic, okay, I'm Protestant," and that's it. People don't normally argue about different aspects of their belief. Many people do not even believe in the particular religion that they're officially a part of. I mean, who really still believes that Jesus actually rose from the dead and performed all these miracles? Or that, I don't know, the wafer turns into Christ's body, or etc., etc. most people were simply christened at one time or baptized at one time, and that's it. They're just paper Christians, so to speak. They do not hold to all of those doctrines. So even most priests, especially, or pastors, especially Protestant ones, seem more like humanists in disguise. What they preach, I could come up with too, without reference to God, I would argue. About 1/3 of the population is non-religious, and amongst those below the age of 30, only 20% are still religious. So, but we still have some problems here. Institutions officially run by the Diaconie and the Caritas are 98% financed by the state, but they still bear the signature or the names of the churches, so to speak, and they do what they want with that. Doctors in hospitals won't allow abortions. In kindergartens, the authorities will fire or won't even hire divorced people, homosexuals, non-religious people, Muslims, or people even of a different sect of Christianity. For instance, a Catholic kindergarten won't hire a Protestant person. Sometimes whole families will even convert to the other faith, only so that the wife, for instance, of that family can work in that kindergarten. And this is really ironic, since the churches will often place incredible emphasis on honesty. But then, on the other hand, if you look at that, they would rather have those people pretend that they believe in their religion, only so that they can work for them. And all this is just ridiculous to me, because, for one, these institutions are, as I said, virtually run by the state, so the churches shouldn't have these privileges they have there. Secondly, whether you are caring for other people does not at all depend on your religious conviction. We all have empathy, we all evaluate the consequences of our actions, we all weigh, so to speak, our own needs with those of others, and that's how morality arises, and not through religion. We all live in a society, and even for practical reasons, we have to work and live and interact together. It is simply in everybody's own interest not to murder each other the whole day long, so to speak. And it's even, I mean, the discussion doesn't even have to be that profound. It's if I ask the question, in what kind of society would you rather live? One in which rape is legal, or one in which it is illegal? I mean, I think everybody will say the latter. So, you know, it's simply ingrained into us. We can agree on these things. You don't need God or religion for that. And thirdly, whether you're caring or not does likewise not depend on your sexual orientation or your marital status either. Again, it's dependent on empathy that everyone, I claim, or I would argue, innately has. There are also problems in politics. Admittedly, there is no right-wing Republican Party like in the US, and there are tons of parties that have many outspoken atheists as members, for example, the Green Party or the party Die Linke. But nevertheless, there is still the CDU-CSU, and as far as I know, the C does not stand for cool. But admittedly, you don't have to be a Christian to be a member of that party, as far as I know at least. But it gets scandalous, in my opinion, when politicians base political decisions not on rational arguments, but on their faith or even on the Bible. Remember when last year Angela Merkel said in the Wahl Arena that she would not feel good or well if same-sex marriage were legally equal to heterosexual marriage? I mean, that's not an argument. Or when Thomas de Maizière said at the Kirchentag in 2012 that due to the influence of Caritas and Diaconie, the social order in Germany would totally collapse without the churches. Or remember a few years ago when the Pope spoke in the German Parliament. So I'm going to address each of these things separately. In terms of Merkel's claim, again, that's not an argument. And additionally, since many Christians, even in Germany, will claim that homosexuality is somehow unnatural, science has actually found homosexuality in almost every animal species, so there's nothing unnatural for me to see there. In terms of de Maizier's assertion about the social order that would collapse without the churches, remember that the churches only contribute 2% to the resources of the Caritas and Diaconie. And in terms of the Pope speaking in Parliament, now admittedly it was totally optional for the members of Parliament to listen to that speech, and many did indeed stay absent from it. But isn't this a violation of the separation of church and state? Another problem is that there is still an article punishing blasphemy in the Bundesgesetzbuch, paragraph 166. Now, since we're all fluent in German, I'm just going to read it in German. 1. Wer öffentlich oder durch Verbreiten von Schriften den Inhalt des religiösen oder weltanschaulichen Bekenntnisses anderer in einer Weise beschimpft, die geeignet ist, den öffentlichen Frieden zu stören, wird mit Freiheitsstrafe von bis zu 3 Jahren oder mit Geldstrafe bestraft. And yeah, secondly, ebenso wird bestraft, wer öffentlich oder durch Verbreiten von Schriften eine im Inland bestehende Kirche oder andere Religionsgesellschaft oder Weltanschauungsvereinigung ihre Einrichtungen oder Gebräuche in einer Weise beschimpft, die geeignet sind, den öffentlichen Frieden zu stören. In fact, in 2007, this harmless little children's book by a well-known philosopher and outspoken atheist Michael Schmidt-Salomon was put on trial because it supposedly violated that blasphemy article. So luckily that lawsuit failed. After that they tried it with, they claimed that this is somehow anti-Semitical, but the Central Committee of the Jews, they said, no, it's not anti-Semitical, it criticizes all religions. So, or at least it encourages skepticism. So yeah, and that's actually it from my part. That's my bibliography, but you also have